In this video, I'm going to show you how to add Adobe Fonts in Codepen. So the first thing we do is we go to the Adobe Fonts website, which is fonts.adobe.com. Then we need to sign in, and as a Swinburne student you should have a free subscription to Adobe, so use your student email please to sign into your Adobe account. Hopefully you've already selected two fonts that work together, one font family for your headings and another for your body text. Right now I am going to select two fonts. Now you can go over here and choose your fonts here. So I might decide I'm going to use Ephra and Century Gothic. So I might use Century Gothic for my headings and Ephra for my body text. You can see the number of fonts available in the font family or the typeface right here. We've got 4 here, we've got 10 here. So let's go and view the family. Now you can see here I can either activate all 10 fonts, and that is a large amount of fonts for a user to download when they're viewing your website, so it's probably best to just activate the ones that you want used on the website. So I might decide that I want regular and that occasionally there will also be italic used. So you just click them as needed, and I might also decide that I want medium. And then, whoops, I can add them to a web project. You can see those ones that are selected. I can show the 6 more. You see the ones that are ticked are the ones that are going to be added to the project. Don't add more than you need. You can always come back and edit this later and add more fonts. But right now we want to use the fewest that we need so that we can keep the download time to a minimum for the students. So I can create a new project here. So create a new project, and I'm going to call this Adobe Font Demonstration, and we will just create that now. So I've got all these details. I don't actually want them yet, because remember I also want to add a heading font. So this is Ephra. I'm going to use that for my body text font. Now I want to add Century Gothic as my heading. So let's just jump in there, view family again. I'm not going to activate all 4 fonts. I want to decide which one I want to use, and that may be the regular one here that I use. So I'm going to activate that font, and I may decide, well, I'm never going to use italics in my headings, so I'm going to keep the download times minimal. And remember, the more you keep the download times minimal, it's actually good for sustainability, not just for user experience. So I'm activating that font. If you ever change your mind, you can go in and deactivate the font. I'm going to add it to my web project, and here, because we've already selected one, whoops, look, it's selecting all of them. I don't want all of them, so it's good to have this way of checking as well. And we're going to add it to Adobe Font Demonstration so that all of these are in the same. You can see that it tells me this project also includes Ephra, so that I'm aware of all the font families and fonts being added. So I'm just going to click Save now. And we now have that this has been added. Now I'm going to click Done. I'm not actually using this just yet. Now that we've selected our fonts and put them in a project, we need to go and get the code from that project to add to Codepen. So I'm just going to scroll up, and you go to Manage Fonts in the top right. Then you can see here we have web projects. So I just click on that, and we can see that we have Adobe Font Demonstration, which is the one that I have just created. And you can see that we have our link here to the CSS. So I'm just going to select that and I'm going to copy it. I'm on a PC, so I'm using Control C, but if you're on a Mac, you would use Command C. And next thing, I go to my Codepen project where I need to add this. So let's go to Codepen. Now this is a very simple project I've prepared. I have some text on the page and the tags are H1, H2, H3 and P for paragraph, so that we can see how I'm adding these fonts and how they will style the headings versus the paragraph text. So I need to add it to the settings. Now I'm zoomed in, so I need to click on this button to see the settings, but you should see a settings symbol if you're at the 100% view. So go to settings, click on that, and you're looking for HTML, okay? If I zoom out, you'll see it to the left here. So we're looking at HTML, and what you want to do is put the link in stuff for head. If you were coding this from scratch, using Dreamweaver or something like this, you would put it in the head section. So in Codepen, we go to HTML, stuff for head, and that's where you paste the link tag. And you'll see that the code says rel. So the relationship is this is a style sheet, and then it gives an I'll undo that. Then it gives an href, a hypertext reference, and it tells us exactly where this style sheet is located, which is at typekit. Once you've added that in the stuff for head, that's all you need to add. We click save and close. And you will notice that the text does not change here. And the reason it has not changed is we need to then apply CSS so that we can style these headings. So how do we add the CSS? Well, let's start off by identifying our selectors. So I want to change H1, I want to change H2, and I want to change H3, and also, of course, P. Now, the thing is, when I'm adding fonts, if I wanted the same font added to H1, H2, and H3, so not separate fonts for each, what I can do, if I delete those last two, is I can actually put them all on one line. And here I'm going to zoom in so you can see what I'm typing. We'll go to CSS, so you can see my code here. I have H1 currently. If I also want H2 and H3 applied with this style, comma, H2, comma, H3. So remember to put the comma in. If you put a comma in between them, it creates a list. So it will apply to all three of these elements. So I've got H1, comma, H2, comma, H3. So now we just need to add the CSS instruction. I'm just going to go Control S to save, or on a Mac you would use Command S, and now we'll go back to Adobe Fonts so that we can get the code we need. So I'm back in Adobe Fonts, and you remember we were on Adobe Font Demonstration, and I went straight in here, and you can click this to copy the link tag for the settings area for the head section, the stuff for head. But what we need is the CSS. To get the CSS, we actually open it to edit the project. We're not going to edit the project, but we need to open it by clicking Edit Project. And you can see right here, it's actually a bit tricky to see when you first see it, because when you first go here, because it's very, very small. Underneath the name of the font, you will see some CSS, and that is font family Ephra Sans Serif. So if we are applying Ephra to the body text, I select that, Command or Control C to copy, go back to our fonts, and I just pop that into the paragraph section. And you see how that immediately changes the style. Let's do the same for the headings. So I scoot on down here. We have Century Gothic, which I'm using for my headings. I select the CSS directly below the title there. And it's really good to do this because you see how it says Century Gothic with a hyphen. It's not just Century Gothic as two words. And you need to have this exact spelling, exact punctuation, exact uppercase or lowercase, I believe, so that it works. So I'm copying this. Again, I'm on a PC, Control C. If you're on a Mac, it'll be Command C. Go back to Adobe Fonts and I pop that into the heading. And there we go. It's changed all of these things. So the only last thing I would want to do is add some fallback fonts, so that, just say this is opened on somebody's computer where they don't have access or it won't open the Adobe Fonts. I need to have something that's a fallback font so that it doesn't just pick some generic sans serif. This is the last choice out of the series of choices, because once you rely on sans serif or the generic font family, you're relying on the browser to pick a nice font, and trust me, browsers are terrible designers. So let's say that for our headings we would want say maybe Tahoma, or let me think of another sans serif. We might want let's just say Helvetica, and maybe Arial as our last option. And so now we have what we call a font stack with fallback fonts, so that if Century Gothic doesn't work, it will then choose Tahoma. If Tahoma doesn't work, it'll choose Helvetica. If Helvetica doesn't work, for instance, if the person's on a PC that doesn't have Helvetica, we've got Arial, and then the absolute last choice is sans serif. And we'll do a similar thing for here. We've got Ephra as our first choice, and here I might decide, well, no Tahoma, we'll just do Helvetica and Arial. And now we have a font stack, so that it's not going to just default to whatever the browser think looks best, because as I mentioned just a second ago, browsers make lousy designers. So in this video, I showed you how to go to Adobe Fonts and choose the fonts you need, add them to a web project, go into Manage Fonts, find your web projects. Once you get in there, choose the web project you want. Get the link that you need for the settings area, stuff for head, and then go in and get the CSS that you need to style that font. So make sure you watch the other videos that show you how to further style the text on your pages. One last thing. You will notice if I close this, it does actually recommend, if you're using an HTML email, use the @import link. Now, even if the project you're using in class is an HTML email, you won't be sending it as an HTML email, so we're quite happy for you just to use the link tag instead. But this is important to note: if you do plan on sending professional HTML emails, do follow the instructions and instead use something like this. But like I said, we are just using the default style sheet link instead in this project.